Go. Let's start all over again. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Kurt Ranowski, publisher of Yankee T News, coming to you again from the world-famous Parkway Downer in Stamford, Connecticut on this Monday, 13th of January in the year of our Lord 2024. Now, before I jump in on this, the main topics, I did stop by to pick up a local paper. That was the Stamford Advocate. And I need to show you, all right, and before I show this to you, I want to point out that in my past broadcasts, I have complained, I have bitched, I have moaned about how the state press is not able to tell the truth when it comes to population, unemployment, the state of the economy, what's happening with manufacturing, okay? I would defy anyone to go through the past 2 years, let's say, of any local paper in the state. It could include the Hartford Courant, it could include the New Haven Register. You're not going to find what I'm about to show you. So here, for the first time in a long time, what I've been complaining about, Lamont finally decided to talk about. So here you go. That's right. He said the cities should be 50% larger. All right, so I'm going to take this opportunity to remind you, the audience, I don't know how long you follow my stuff. If you have cars driving down a road, okay, and let's say the average speed of these cars is about 20 miles an hour, but then you've got this car that's going 10 miles an hour. What do you think is going to happen to the car that's going 10 miles an hour? That's right, it's going to fall behind further and further and further until you can't even see it anymore. Welcome to Connecticut, all right? The national economy has continued to grow faster for at least the last 20 years, if not more, than the economy of the state of Connecticut. So guess what happens? I guess if the economy is kind of declining, maybe the population would be declining, and maybe at some point you need to make an obnoxious statement like this. Right. Okay, governor seeks to reverse trend of shrinking population. So they try to excuse it in the article with a peak size of 1950. All right, right off the bat, ladies and gentlemen, these people, they still can't get it right. This is boggling my mind. You will find other sources that try to trend census statistics for Connecticut, and they'll show low to flat increase in population that's been going on since who knows when. Here, they want to tell us that the population's been declining. Which is it? Guys, you got to get your facts straight. All right, so all of this said, and if you wanted to pick on Bridgeport, you could do that. Bridgeport's population has declined somewhat, but the success story nobody talks about is how dramatically Stamford's population has grown. If you were to compare Stamford and Bridgeport, 1960, okay, versus 2024, so here's Bridgeport, and over that time maybe it's kind of gone like this, but the population of Stamford has gone from here to here in that same time. So it's a case of Stamford doing something right and Bridgeport doing something wrong. And that's a whole other discussion, okay? So the point is, there are questions in my mind about the motivations of the people who report this. So, Mr. Lamont, why are you bringing this up now? I always like to ask, why now? Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We're at the beginning of a legislative session. And guess who's loaded for bear for this legislative session in Connecticut? That's right, desegregate CT, okay, which is just a shill for the real estate development industry in Connecticut, all right, and not a very good shill at that. So what do these people want to do? They want to make the urban centers more dense with population, but do it in ways where they take away local control. So that's a whole other issue, but I just saw this, I had to show it to you. These people just can't help themselves. I mean, just the degree to which we get manipulated continues to astonish. All right. So I just want to remind you, one of our pieces of continuing coverage, it's called Tell Tong Time for Confederate Attorney General. Oh, he likes to be referred to as General. So we'll call him Confederate General William Tong. So Confederate General William Tong, we need to remind you that you're going to have to put Tom Homan on speed dial. That's right. You didn't like that letter you got, and some people tried to push back on it. That's a letter from Stephen Miller from America First. So, yeah. Anyway, also we've been following Tina Peters, the one who's in prison serving a 9-year sentence because she tried to tell the truth about election fraud in the state of Colorado. And unfortunately still there. So I checked back on their website, and today, guess what? The website is down. So hopefully we'll get some answer on that. Meantime, tonight's theme, right? How could it be anything else? So we're going to talk about the Los Angeles fires, but the theme is the death of America, writ small. Okay? The death of America, writ small. And certainly the metaphor for the flames is incompetence. I'm going to say that it's incompetence that's burning out of control here. We've seen the incredible mistakes that were made by the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, who, by the way, is now staring down a petition for her resignation that's grown to be over 120,000 in just a few days. You can count on that petition to grow even more, right? So there's that. Now, I have to offer another part here, especially when you look at the interviews that they had with Governor Newsom. He seems to be unaware. He doesn't hear himself, all right? So my reaction is the way he's acting inspires the same famous comment that J.D. Vance offered up for Martha Raddatz when she was defending the drug gangs in Colorado. Martha, do you really hear yourself? Okay, Newsom, do you really hear yourself? This lack of self-awareness is a very dangerous thing, and they seem to have it in spades. Anyway, the final point in my presentation on this is that the fires in Los Angeles are, yes, a warning to America. So I am hoping and praying that the fire, yes it is, hoping and praying that the fire departments in around the nation are going to be looking at their own situation, looking at their own contingency plans, look at their own crisis plans, and make sure that they've got everything covered, because God forbid that they should find themselves in a situation like this, whether it's another city along the coast of California, a city in some dry area in the West, or a place in Texas. You don't want that happening, so why don't you do some preventative planning? Meantime, on to the projects. I really don't understand people like the Labour Party in the UK, okay? They have been caught dead to rights in covering up for these rape gangs, all right? You've had people like Piers Morgan just going weird, okay? What are we really talking about? Are we talking about Muslims, or are we talking about Pakistani men? Seriously, dude, seriously, all right? These hair-splitting distinctions, which have no distinction to them whatsoever, just show that you have no issue, no leg to stand on, all right? So I am simply announcing my shock and dismay at these people. And we have the link up, one of the latest on this. You know, I mean, the UK is really just deep, deep trouble. All right. Anyway, I'm going to go on to the next project now. This is very important. If you're still with me, you've got to stick through this one. This is crucial. All right. I'll start with the first one first. And I did mention in a previous broadcast. James O'Keefe with O'Keefe Media Group had disclosed that they had been putting out their information requests, their FOIAs, to various federal agencies, and they got one from, I believe it's the VA, as a part of Health and Human Services, in which there was a request, okay, by this office in the VA, if I have it right, where they were asking for, quote, medical resources to deploy during the inauguration day. Okay, there's just one problem. It's never been done before. This is the first time ever in anybody's memory, and they searched and they checked, that anybody has ever asked for medical resources for inauguration day. All right? That should make you suspicious right away. So hold on to that thought. Now the second part. We got the link up here. You got to go check it out. What is his name? Blinken? Jake? Blinken? The Secretary of State giving his sort of send-off press conference, and then somewhere towards the end he says, well, you know, I'm sorry to be going, guys, and, you know, I hope I don't have to come back here again, but you never know. Anything could happen in the next few days. What? What? You just said something might happen in the next few days? That was weird, okay? He was, how should we say this, improvising a little bit too much. Okay, maybe I'm reading too much into it. I'd be the first to admit it, but there you go. He's hinting at something that could happen on Inauguration Day, and we have a request for medical personnel. So I just want you to mull it over yourself and maybe do a little homework on it. Meantime, just some quick mentions, all right, because these things have been in the news, and I just don't have time to get into them. All right, with Ukraine and Russia, all right, you continue to have these conflicts, but the talk is about actually having peace talks. And they're just kind of hitting at it. You have the meetings that are going on. The only thing is that Trump and his proxies have come back and said, well, this may take a little bit longer than expected. All right, but at least you guys are going to be working on it, unlike your predecessor. Next. The Middle East, same story. So here's the talk about 30 some hostages are going to be released by Hamas. Is that all of them? We don't know. The timing is interesting. Now the question is going to be, what do they do on the day of inauguration? Because if soon-to-be President Trump is good for his word, yeah, they might have some problems pretty quickly if they haven't released those hostages. Now, I'm going to just right now focus on this one piece that really annoys. Oh, by the way, I just want a little digression, if I may. So I gave you this warning. Nonetheless, you might remember this picture. Yes? Okay, that's where Trump got in after Biden referred to us as garbage. So he decided to get into a garbage truck. I guess the metaphor is to collect garbage. Well, guess what? For the inaugural parade, you will be seeing this garbage truck. All right? Is that brilliant or is that brilliant? Hopefully, if nothing bad happens. All right, meantime. Oh, God. All right, here, just give me a minute here. All right, this piece. Let me just read the title. Half the country's thinking magically. California fire victims grapple with a political paralysis over climate change. The argument here, yes, is over climate change. The writer is a guy named David Siders, you know, super liberal. But, you know, he makes statements which, if we had the opportunity, we would be debating. So one, for example, is talking about how the science is supposedly settled on how climate change is causing wildfires. No, it's not settled. No. We have a little discussion about that. Plus, or is the other goodie here? It's still the same problem. So my message to Mr. Siders is, one, more and more evidence is showing that carbon dioxide is not a factor in climate change, in warming, okay? And number two, the growth in climate change issues, in carbon dioxide may actually be beneficial. And in fact, it would tend to mitigate against fires. So, but you want to claim that warming produces more winds, and other people are saying that you don't look at this correctly. So he's trying to gather different points of view in this article, but I see at the end of the day, This is going to be an example of somebody who I equate with the people who were sitting in Paris in the spring of 1940 before the Nazis invaded. They were in this delusional state, not expecting an invasion by the Nazis, all right? These guys are sitting there in a delusional state, not understanding the causes of these fires. To wit, I'm going to jump on one quickly here. So Eric and I were having a little back and forth on the question of whether or not there's an arsonist. So he remains, he wants better confirmation. I will just recite to you what I heard and read, and then you can decide. So as the story goes, there was a gentleman in a neighborhood in Los Angeles who saw this other guy walking around with one of those tanks of gas you could buy at Home Depot. It was AMAP gas, I think. It's a yellow container. And so he accused him of starting a fire. They had a discussion, nothing came of it. So now the guy leaves. So now this guy decides to follow him. And about 10 minutes later, the guy goes into some area. He sees him do it. And then he comes back. And shortly after he returns, a fire starts. Okay? I'll just point out that arsonists have been convicted on less. But in the eyes of some, they'd say, well, hey, you didn't see him do it, which is a kind of a ridiculous claim, but a claim nonetheless. And it turns out that when this gentleman was apprehended, he had 5 cell phones on him. I don't know anybody with 5 cell phones. Do you know anybody with 5 cell phones? And it turns out that he was an illegal alien from Syria. Interesting. However, there was one other thing on his possession, a United Nations identity card. Well, who gets a United Nations identity card? That wouldn't have been given to him if he came over the border. We don't have the UN at the border. So there's something suspicious about this guy. And you know what? Since he was not prosecuted for arson, I'm willing to bet that that UN identity card was his get-out-of-jail-free card. Just saying.
Diplomatic immunity.
Well, that'd be wild. But how can an illegal alien have a diplomatic immunity? You know, okay, so, you know, there's a story behind the story.
Because he's a minority.
Well, I don't know if that's it. All we know is he didn't get arrested, and we're looking for an explanation, and that little tidbit of information seems to provide the best explanation. Okay. So I just had to share that with you. And Tom Homan, all right, he is a man on the move, all right? And he has reported that they're going to set up a hotline, all right? Are you ready for the hotline? The hotline is if you see anybody who's an illegal alien, see any suspicious activity that makes you think they're illegal aliens, you can call the hotline. Brilliant idea. And of course, the liberals are in meltdown over it. Okay, and I wanted to remind you that this week is the big week. 14 of them, count them, 14 cabinet appointments to have hearings before the Senate in order to be approved. We hope and pray it all goes smoothly, but we know that's hoping for a lot. Now, meantime, back to Connecticut again. We are in the warming up phase of the legislative session. So I just want to mention, and we had the link up, there's a group called CT-RAM, which is Connecticut Residents Against Medical Masks, run by a woman named Kate Prokop, and they have put up a bill tracker for everybody to read. So we have the link for that. And I just need to make the point that not only her, but others have been stepping up to the plate for this session. We're going to see more people speaking out against these crazy bills this time than in the last session. And she'll have something to do with it. All right, and then there was 5. Hold on, bear with me. I got to get number 5. I can't leave out number 5. Where did it go? All right, I'll have to mention it later, I guess. Oh, wait, here we go. Hold on. Oh, yeah, Tina Peters. Okay, again, the site is down. We don't know why. Okay, but best one of all, the bonus piece. I always like to have a bonus piece. This should shock a lot of people, so get ready. Here you go. Deflation hits China, and the Chinese central bank stops issuing bonds. What? They're not issuing bonds anymore? That doesn't sound very good. So allow me to explain. Who's the biggest debt holder in any given country? The government is the biggest debt holder. So what does it mean when you buy debt? All right, it's good, the value of that debt, the price of that debt over time will either go up or it'll go down. All right, if there's inflation, then the value of that debt will increase. And so it makes sense for the government to redeem that debt because they earn it at the inflated price, which is technically more money. In the case of deflation, the price of the debt goes down. So now if you redeem it, you're going to lose money. So does the Chinese central bank want to lose money on the bonds they're issuing? No, they don't. But I'm going to take this opportunity to say this is a moment where Peter Zeihan, the geopolitical economist, gets to have his I told you so moment. He told us that China is in demographic decline, okay? Demographic decline also means economic decline. If you have fewer people, unless you're increasing productivity, your economy is not going to grow. It's going to shrink. And if it's shrinking, what happens? Demand goes down. And if demand goes down, then what happens? Then you have deflation. And that's what they're dealing with right now. They're worried about deflation. All right? Anyway, the last point I want to make is on our links, we have a whole bunch of papers for you to go check out. I just don't have time to get through them. But different angles and takes on what's going on with the Los Angeles fire. So check out those links, and we'll see you next week.